Welcome back, everyone, once again to a new installment of Screenplay Rewind. I'm Jeff.
I'm Ron, and I can assure you this podcast is not the least bit amusing.
I can also assure you of that.
What's up?
I apologize in advance if I have weird energy for this one because I slept like shit the whole weekend.
It was a full moon last night, you see.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of murdered like 6 people, but
And they won't shut up.
yeah, that's the real pain in the ass, you know.
Right?
The murdering was the friends we made along the way.
Literally.
Man.
Oh, man.
But yeah,
happy anniversary, Jeff.
Yeah, it's been what, 4 years of this nonsense, and they haven't shut down the platforms we're on yet.
And people are still listening. I don't get it. What are you doing here? What are we doing here?
Yeah, 4 years is nuts. This is going to be episode 110, and I was thinking back to how every episode of this podcast that we record is at least 4 hours long. So that's a lot of content that nobody asked for.
Oh, man. I have all those files. What if I dropped them all into one file?
Man.
I think my computer would just implode into a singularity.
You would just hear like an 8-bit like kill me.
Just the Pac-Man.
Oh, but what I would say though is I slept like shit over the weekend and basically just feel like garbage because I didn't sleep that well over the last few days. So it'll probably be a bit of a weird episode for me, but fortunately this is one of Ron's favorite movies of all time, so he'll have plenty of enthusiasm for the both of us.
Fuck yes.
But before we get to our review of An American Werewolf in London, what are some of our comments and questions, Ron?
Oh boy. Where to start? Looks like the starting from the top. My wife. I gave you the pause.
You know I can't pass up an opportunity to do that. It's just gonna happen.
She said on our Crimson Peak coverage, because you were talking about it raining at a funeral, she said, I hope it rains at Jeff's funeral, crying, laughing emoji, and then in parentheses, in many years. So she does not wish you ill. She just hopes it rains.
Yeah, that's fair. I like how she had the little clarification that way. Hey, if I go missing next week,
she has to see you in real life at some point.
If I go missing next week, y'all know who to look at as the first suspect. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, I didn't even see this one until just now. Bobby, the ever enigmatic intern, producer,
executive producer / Bobby
/ executive Bobby. Most people don't know this, but every podcast has a Bobby. Ours is just more vocal than most.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a couple of podcasts I listen to where there's the producer like sitting in the room with them that has a mic that they just click on and off every once in a while. I feel like that's Bobby. I feel like we just need to get him to start recording these responses and sending them in.
Right. Yeah. Special correspondent intern Bobby.
So I guarantee you he wrote this just to get me to do this. He says on our Infested coverage, we should open up a reptile museum called Dino Wonderland.
All right. Yeah, there you go. For those that have...
That's an Easter egg for my streams.
Yeah. For those unaware, that is what we call one of our favorite places to drop in PUBG. And
Dino Wonderland.
I don't know the name of the map, but it's the one with Dino Wonderland.
I don't either. We just call it Dino Wonderland.
Yeah,
and that's the area we drop. So if you want to come kill us sometime when we're playing, just keep playing that map over and over and going there. You'll find us.
Oh, yeah. And you will kill us because we're terrible.
You will kill us. And more importantly, you will kill us.
Have you ever seen that Krillin meme where he's like doing the Taken thing where he's like, I have a very particular set of skills, that make me a nightmare for people like you. I will find you and you will kill me.
And you will kill me. I love the love that Krillin is getting on social media right now. because of that one post going on and on about how the hell did he land Android 18, and everyone just being like, "Oh, let's see, he's like the nicest guy."
Balls.
And we're back, just like a dinosaur story.
Are we back?
No, probably not. We'll see. How many times do you think my recording software can crash on us during this podcast?
Does every time that a crash happens,
Krillin died, you guys.
Is he a progressively decomposing corpse? Is that how that works?
No, but my computer is.
Your computer is cursed. It's got the werewolf curse. Every time you look over your computer, it's just like a new shade of like corpse green.
Oh man,
it's got like a chunk of like its like hard drive like hanging off.
Anyways, yeah.
What were we talking about?
The internet's newfound love for Krillin as everyone's coming to his defense because of that post. Yeah, he's like the sweetest guy, genuinely caring, most powerful human on the planet. And everyone's like, yeah, it's a real shocker that he managed to land a really homicidal wife. Anyway,
yeah,
internet, am I right?
Yeah, internet.
Let's see. The ever enigmatic Bobby continues. The studio. We have 2 movies, but only a budget to film 1. Director, I got an idea. That is his summary of our criticism of Infested. It was like 2 different movies happening at the same time.
You know what's bad is I thought so little of that movie, I forgot what he was referring to. I mean, I completely, because that movie was 2 really, really bad movies smushed into 1, and the effect was 2 negatives did not equal a positive because I fucking forgot what movie we covered.
No, I find 2 negatives like equal a hyphen or whatever it is when you press 2 dashes together.
Yeah.
Oh man, and then we got. I fucking love that we covered Kung Fu Hustle. It is the gift that keeps giving. Murky Myers on YouTube.
Is this gonna be another comment that I have to quote, tweet, and make fun of on Twitter? Because I love doing that.
You can. I already sent it to you a while back. Just one simple word ended with a period. They remembered the punctuation.
Wait, 1 dot or 2 dots? Because 2 dots is the way to go.
It's a full sentence, which means the U is implied, I understand. 1 word from Murky Myers, cringe.
That sounds about right.
I can't figure out if that's a negative or a positive.
I can't argue with it. Like, he's kind of on the money, man.
Yeah.
Is the Kung Fu Hustle upload, is that the curse? Like, everyone that just stumbles upon that shit is like cursed to die in 7 days, like the fucking Ring VHS tape?
It is up to 44.3 thousand hits.
I think it's gonna hit 50K, which is insane.
Which I understand for YouTube is nothing, but for us, that's viral.
we used to get super, like, legit surprised when our thing hit 50 views. Now that one almost has 50,000.
Yeah, 13th Warrior is sitting at 20K, so that's pretty good.
Yeah,
for a movie I thought no one cared about.
If you want to get views on YouTube, just record a 2-hour podcast that is roughly the length of the movie you're covering, and then people will just seek it out and be like, "Yeah, this has got to be it, man.
This has got to be the movie.
This is the one." What is this about section? A movie review. Cringe.
Oh, it's so good.
And every time you leave a comment, you pass around the Ring VHS tape to 1 more fucking victim. So thanks for that, man.
Oh man, people keep commenting, keep engaging. They love it. It helps us.
They love it. Basking in their fucking tears like Cartman, dude. Did we have any more comments?
That was all I had. I didn't check the email though. That's usually
I checked the email. I did not see anything.
No, No one even spammed us or hit us up to like review their documentary.
Well, we got 500 individual emails from some individual, and each one is just the word cringe. I don't know. It might be a coincidence. But if you have a prompt or question for Ron and myself that you would like to have discussed at the beginning of the next show, you can always email us at screenplayrewind@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter at SPRFilmcast, or drop the comment actually in the YouTube comment section below.
I actually don't remember how many ratings we had on Apple Podcasts. We might have actually gotten a new like 5-star rating.
Hell yeah. Oh yeah. And any ratings or reviews on whichever platform you found us on always helps us out greatly. I have a little prompt to kind of like since this is essentially our Halloween episode, even though I swear
Jeff, I wasn't expecting this. You remembered our anniversary?
I know, right?
Oh my god! You're the Krillin of this podcast.
Man,
tying it back together. I'm tying it back together.
Full circle. It's only a matter of time until
it will be tonight, soldier. If you remembered our anniversary.
Somebody kill the recording. Kill the recording. I gotta go.
My computer just implodes. I can't anymore. Oh god. Anyways, man. You were saying.
Yeah.
Before I seduced you or whatever, you were saying.
Somebody give me a Destructo disc. I swear, am I crazy, or have we typically just gotten like super lucky with the timing of the podcast? I feel like we usually have an episode dropping on like the weekend of Halloween. Is that usually how it's happened in the past, or am I just misremembering that?
I could easily look, but instead I'm going to say yes, I believe
that's what it feels like. It's been like the scheduling was a bit weird because this is dropping, and part of that is just because Halloween is, on a fucking Thursday.
Well,
lame.
Also though, I feel like we haven't really shunted the podcast as much as sometimes we have to delay more than what we have because either I'm sick or I'm busy or I'm sick. So I feel like we were pretty regular this year. We've been eating our Activia, our podcast Activia.
Now it's just the YouTube commenters which are shunting the podcast. But yeah, so I wanted to have a kind of Halloween-centric topic for this, and I was going to present to Ron. I didn't give you this in advance or anything, so you can spitball it. But what do you think is the most overrated horror movie of all time?
Infested.
All right, now we get on to the review because he has a correct answer. So I will talk
what is one?
I will talk about mine for a minute. That way Ron has a moment to figure out his next correct answer, because that was the correct answer. What is Infested? Ding, ding, ding. So I was thinking about this a couple days ago, and I don't know if it's the most overrated one ever, but the one that immediately jumped to my mind out of recent memory is, I don't think it's a bad movie, but I think it's wildly overrated, and that is It Follows.
Okay.
A lot of people view that in the same kind of regard as something like Hereditary and The Lighthouse and The Witch and stuff, and that is just insane to me because it has some of the most unlikable characters, and it's not unlikable characters in the way that like that would operate in like a Jason or a Freddy movie where you're wanting them to get killed. You just want to turn the movie off because they're so unbearable to listen to and because they're so stupid. The concept is pretty cool, although the concept is also kind of dumb because people have easily figured out ways around the monsters like whole MO. So yeah, I just granted I only watched it once, might like it better if I watch it again. I think they actually have a sequel on the way because it was pretty popular, but yeah, I just never really I remember the soundtrack being pretty cool, but man, the characters and just the overall kind of buzz around it, yeah, I just couldn't get into it. Did you have any others you want to talk about though?
Let's see. I'm trying to look at a couple of lists just to make sure I'm thinking everything that I can. One of them has a point, but I don't know what they're calling overrated because it is a good movie, but I don't. Okay, I'm going to do my usual thing and just give it the most convoluted answer that I can. I'm going to give you two that are both actually on this list. One of them I don't agree that if they're saying it's an overrated horror movie on this list, I agree. If they're saying it's an overrated movie, I disagree.
Okay.
I just don't think it's scary enough to be horror. I think it's more of like a thriller, like edge of your seat type thing, not horror. But the most overrated horror franchise, I think, is Saw.
I would agree with that. Yeah, Saw it kind of ruined horror for several years because it just turned everything into torture porn. So it's like, even though the first Saw was like a decent movie and the second one was okay, it's like what happened to the genre as a whole for the next 10 years was not worth that even a little bit.
Yeah, I don't get everybody's fascination with those movies. Like, it's not even the fact that it's like torture porn. Like, I've watched some dumb shit like that, but it's not scary. Sometimes it's hard to watch, but it's
just
not
gross.
Yeah, it's just gross. It's not. There's nothing scary about it. I can't. I like. Look, Infested doesn't think I can empathize with people unless it gives me a half hour of explanation of how this person's going to move out of the apartment in a couple of days. But
but his neighbor was one day away from neighbor retirement.
I can empathize with people, but not in the situations that's happening in Saw, because that is some Arkham Riddler shit. And yes, I realize Saw came first, but like, it's just, that's what it makes me think of, because it's that goofy to me. I don't know. It's just not scary to me. I think it's very overrated, and those movies are very popular. That last one that came out with Chris Rock did very well, if I recall.
I actually remember that one having kind of positive buzz around it, where people were saying this isn't like par for the course. That was just supposed to be like a genuinely good movie, but I never watched it.
The other answer I'm going to give that is number one on this list for overrated horror movies, and this is the one that I don't agree that it's an overrated movie. I think it's a good movie. I just don't think it's a horror movie. Is Silence of the Lambs.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't view it as a horror movie either, but
I don't either.
I don't understand in what context that would be overrated, because just as like a kind of cop thriller, I think it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, it's a thriller, and I really like that movie. But I have heard people talk about like how much it scared them, and I'm like, why? Anthony Hopkins is hilarious in that movie.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, I don't know. I don't get it.
It's pretty intense at times. Like,
it's intense, and Ted Levine is incredible. Yeah. And if you think that movie is overrated, you can go fuck yourself, because Ted Levine alone.
I think the one thing that like could potentially make it overrated to people who are revisiting it or are maybe seeking it out for the very first time now is just how much
legendary it is.
Well, how much of a meme certain aspects of it became, like the whole I ate his, liver with the side of fava beans or whatever, and then like the whole it puts the lotion on its skin. It's like it hit like terminal velocity in pop culture, where it was like a meme even before memes existed in the 90s. So it just it was so like it was such a commercial success and so widely well known that people kind of lost touch with it, being intense but yeah, I would agree with you. I don't think it's a horror movie. It has horror elements to it, but that doesn't make it a horror movie.
That doesn't make it a horror movie. Yeah. Did you know that Bob from Batman 89 is in Silence of the Lambs? I didn't remember that at all.
I think I did know that, because I think they talked about it on they did an unfilmable on Duckfeed for Silence of the Lambs a few months back. I think I remember them talking about that, but I can't recall.
Tracy Walter will always and forever be Bob to me.
He's Bob.
Yeah.
Were there any other ones on the list that you made note of as you're kind of browsing around?
No, I mean, I like horror movies, but I watch like creature oriented movies. I don't watch a lot of the stuff that's in these lists. Like, I've never seen the Blair Witch Project. I don't remember Cabin in the Woods, but I watched it.
Cabin in the Woods is very good.
I've never seen Paranormal Activity or Cabin Fever. They have Dawn of the Dead in here. I don't know about that. That's the 2004 remake, and I like that movie.
I liked it too.
Maybe as a horror movie, it's overrated because it's not really scary once again, but I think it's pretty good. They have Final Destination in here. That movie scared the shit out of me 24 years ago.
Final Destination.
Yeah, that first one.
I can't.
Before it like folded in on itself and became a meme of itself in the sequels.
Yeah,
that first one is fucking scary, man.
It's a cool concept for it, for sure.
I never seen I Know What You Did Last Summer. Like,
I would say just as a whole, as much as I like a couple of the entries, I think Friday the 13th is probably the most overrated of the primary like horror franchises. Like Nightmare on Elm Street, such a cooler concept and character, even though that also folded in on itself and became a meme eventually with what they did to Freddy. But
however, I think with Freddy, I always kind of liked that because just like with all the other slashers, you can really only do it once, and then after that, it's just kind of the same movie again and again. So making the pivot to making Freddy funny, I don't know, that kind of worked for me. I kind of enjoyed the sequels.
They had a much better like baseline to use as a concept for additional movies too. Like some of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies actually did like a cool thing with like one of them is purely meta, to where like it actually recognizes like Nightmare on Elm Street as being a movie franchise within the movie, and it's fucking bonkers. But it's like a ballsy idea, so I respected it a lot. I forget. I think it might have been like New Nightmare. I forget. The other one that is kind of like hit or miss, but I still like overall, just because of how much I like the first one, is Halloween. Just I can't. Granted, I was never a big fan of like its reboot, but I like the original first Halloween movie so much that I would say that's better than Friday the 13th and its 400 sequels.
Yeah, see, that's my knee-jerk reaction. It has been so long since I've seen Friday the 13th. I've seen Halloween much more recently. I'd have to watch Friday the 13th again before I said for sure, but I think it says something that I've seen Halloween more recently and more often than I've seen Friday the 13th though.
Friday the 13th is also a weird one too, because what everyone correlates the franchise to began with the second one.
Right.
Because the first one is totally different. You know, Jason's not even your antagonist, and I think the first one's kind of boring. They go long stretches without really anything happening in it, so...
However, I have to say, as far as franchises that end up in space, as is the meme, dude, Jason X or
Jason
whatever.
X is pretty great.
I fucking love that movie. You can go to hell if you disagree.
When that one girl gets like flash frozen and then shattered in like a bajillion pieces, like that's some good stupid bullshit that I want.
I'm laying it down right now. Jason X is probably our first live commentary when we do
that'd be pretty fun,
because Jason X is a damn good movie and I saw it the one time in theaters. Jason X is not a good movie, it's a glorious movie. Exactly. It's an exquisite movie.
Yeah, it is maybe the most exquisite horror movie.
Okay, I'm gonna turn this on you. What do you think is the most underrated horror movie in your opinion?
The most underrated horror movie.
Maybe not necessarily underappreciated, but like more people should see this movie.
You know what? Granted, it was fairly popular, but I don't think it gets the respect that it deserves. Nope. I fucking love Nope.
Oh, Nope is so good.
And Nope deserves so much more recognition than it got.
I don't think the title helps. I like the title, but I don't think it helped it.
Yeah, it did not.
And they put out trailers for it that did not give anything away, but they also didn't bring you in either. I don't remember the trailers being particularly good.
Well, I remember them being okay, but they were going the Cloverfield route of like, you don't really know what you're seeing, which I would rather that than the entire fucking movie be spoiled for me. But yeah, they were playing it very close to the chest with those.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. I really like that movie.
What's your answer?
I mean, once again, you know, the podcasts that you and I listen to talk about it, and I hear people mention it from time to time. but I don't think The Ritual gets enough appreciation.
I would agree. I love that movie.
That's such a good movie.
Yeah, we covered that, like a couple years ago now, I think.
Yeah, was it a Halloween episode also?
I'm not sure.
Halloween episode?
I am not sure.
Let me see. Ow. Oh, God. Why? With the no dark mode. Let's see. I can't handle it.
Every week is this a battle with you and dark
and
mode
the
or
lack
not
of dark mode. Let's see. Going back. The Wayback Machine. Event Horizon was our last year Halloween episode. That was already a year ago?
Yeah.
Oh my God. We covered Nope about a year ago too, ish. Where is my The Ritual?
Maybe it was longer than 2 years ago.
I'm thinking it was longer than 2 years based on what I am seeing here. I think we might have covered it earlier on than we thought. Losers. I wish I could just load all of these.
It was episode 35. If that helps you scroll through the list.
It is. That was October 9th, 2021. We covered that a year into the show.
So that was 3 years ago? Fuck, dude.
Dude.
I'm already feeling so old. We need to stop doing this.
The Lighthouse was our Halloween special on that one, too.
That was also 3 years ago?
Yep.
Killed me.
Sure was. And then what was 22?
As far as our Halloween
Hereditary.
Thing? Yes.
Hereditary, yeah.
I gotta watch Hereditary again because it's almost Halloween. Just fuck me up for an entire day.
I have to wait till I get a new TV.
We're gonna be watching Hereditary for the first fucking time. That's why you like your TV so much, because it's just permanent fucking dark mode.
Exactly. The darker the better, baby.
I need to not see a fucking pixel of this movie, man.
I like my screens the way I like my men.
No pixels, just atmosphere of dark mode. Yes. Yeah. I think that's gonna be a wrap for our prompt and in the comments and questions section. Again, if you have any questions for Ron and myself, just drop them in the comments or any of the aforementioned platforms where we can find the prompt and discuss the next episode. So, Ron, you want to talk about one of where is this your like? It's got to be like in your top 5 because you always talk this movie up. Is like, where does this rank as far as like your favorite movies?
Oh Jesus!
It's got to be up at least top 10, like up there.
It's definitely top 10. It might be top 5
because I feel like this was one of the ones where you were peak excitement as far as like introducing it to me.
I think this is one of the first ones. For those that don't know, pre-pandemic, Jeff and I would hang out. He'd come over to my house and we would do a double feature and then just kind of hang out and talk about whatever. Usually the movies. We just finished 2 movies. Why wouldn't we talk about them? And then when the pandemic hit, we stopped for a while. And then we're like, why? We've done a podcast before. We can just turn this into a podcast and give us something to do. And then that us hanging out every once in a while doing a double feature turned into the podcast.
Cringe.
I think when we first started doing that, I think this is one of the first movies I showed you. Because I could not believe you hadn't seen it and you love werewolves as much as I do.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the most underrated fucking genre is werewolf stuff. Like, why don't we get more werewolf shit? We had like a solid 20 years of nothing but goddamn vampire stuff. And I like vampires, but like a little bit of love for the werewolf stuff, please.
Hey, what happened to the Team Jacob people out there, huh? Where's my werewolves at? I hate that I know the name of the werewolf in that. Yeah, no, this is up there for me. Which is funny because usually when I bring a movie to the show and I talk about how much I love it and like how it's usually near and dear to me because it's something me and my dad would watch or whatever. I don't think my dad's ever seen this movie.
Interesting.
This is just one that I came across. I think the people are going to be so angry when I say this, and I like it for different reasons, but I do like An American Werewolf in Paris, and my dad did watch that a lot, and
So you watched that one, but not the original one?
I might have seen that first and gone back. I don't know what year. Werewolf in 1997. I'd have been 12. I might have seen that movie first and then gone back to this one. And my dad has this weird thing where if it's older than like 20 or 30 years, he doesn't watch it if it's past a certain age because he can't handle the way it looks, like the way the actual film and stuff looks. So that's why I had never seen Star Wars for the longest time and everything. Yeah. I think I might have seen that first.
Just real quickly, we're gonna have spoilers in full for An American Werewolf in
You
London.
goddamn right we are.
Probably a little bit for the second one because I just wanted to ask. So without talking in too much detail in case I watch it, is the sequel for me like worth checking out? Because the sequel, I believe, is one of the most like hated horror sequels, just kind of like by reputation.
I never really saw it as a sequel. I always saw it more of a remake.
Okay. Is it worth watching though for me, do you think? Or no?
Absolutely not, I think.
Really?
I really like that movie. A lot of the reasons are for the wrong reasons, but there are some genuinely good stuff in it. But I think the werewolf in it is probably Beast Wars graphics.
Yeah, that is one of the first things that I see people talk about just in kind of, because like I did like a little bit of like just kind of searching around on Reddit for this movie, and it seemed like that was kind of the initial complaint people would have about the sequel was they would talk about like some of the worst CGI they've ever seen in a movie. And it's just like my issues with the Thing prequel. When your original movie like this and John Carpenter's The Thing,
trigger warning for the Jeffs in the audience,
when one of the most just like beloved things about your original movie is its use of practical effects, that is that's like a twist of the knife when you not only do CGI but it's bad CGI. Because like the transformation sequence is the most famous sequence from this movie, like bar none.
The transformation sequence is so good.
That scene got them the fucking first ever Academy Award for like makeup.
Yeah.
And like effects and shit for the makeup, like and then to turn around for the sequel and then to just completely punt on the practical effects, which is like it's like the heart and soul of the movie is some of the effects, especially with like with Jack and everything. Like, come on.
I will say, while a really grim thing happens at the end of Paris, it is a happier ending, which is something that, well, I think that's one of the things people hate about it, because John Landis specifically feels like werewolves are tragic characters, and he wanted his werewolf to be tragic characters, so we have a tragic ending. And I think that it just kind of flies in the face of the entire philosophy of American Werewolf in London, because we have our werewolf survives and cures himself. Spoiler alert.
Gotcha.
Whereas our werewolf in London does cure himself, you could say. You could say. Does not survive, though.
Do you want to start off with like cast and crew?
Cast and crew.
Because I wanted to talk to you about. So this was written and directed by John Landis.
Yep.
John Landis is like a weird director for me because he's John Landis, and I really really like this movie, and I really like Animal House. I haven't seen a lot of like his most famous shit. Like I haven't seen Coming to America. I haven't seen, what was the other one that he did with him? Shit, I'm scrolling back through. The other one I'm thinking of, it was like mid 80s, early 80s. Trading Places. I haven't seen that either.
I haven't seen that either.
Those are a couple of his most famous ones. I have seen The Blues Brothers. I remember none of it because I watched it when I was very young.
I watched none of it
1,000 years ago.
I've seen Coming to America. I remember none of it. And as far as directing, he didn't write this, did he? No, he did not. Have you ever seen Three Amigos? He directed that.
I did a million years ago. Remember none of it.
my most favorite line in that movie when they're the premise, right? They're movie actors, but people think their exploits are real.
Yeah.
There's a troubled village that keeps getting hounded by this one gang leader, this one gang, and when they write to them for help, they want them to come take on the infamous so and so. And then when Steve Martin, I think it is reading it, he's like, the infamous so and so. Like, oh man, this is gonna be great for our careers. Like, just the word going from infamous to infamous. Oh, it's so good.
I have seen the Kentucky Fried movie and remember exactly one scene from it because it's such a fucking funny scene. But have you ever seen Kentucky Fried movie?
No, I have not.
I think it was like it's kind of like an anthology thing because it's like a TV channel that is basically combining like different skits. But at one point, the skit is just showing people in a movie theater, and every single person in the movie theater pretty much is eating a bucket of popcorn. And then you just hear someone go over the intercom and they just say, attention everyone, the popcorn you are eating has been pissed on. And everyone just like, it goes real quiet for a second and then everyone just loses their mind. And that is such like a fucking Family Guy joke that it is stuck in my head for like 30 years.
Oh man. That sounds like something you and I would write.
Right. Have you seen Animal House?
I have not.
I think you'd like Animal House.
I don't know a whole lot of John Landis's career. I know him from this.
Yeah.
Mostly.
But if you just look at his career, he has such a weird fucking career because like he has stuff like the Blues Brothers, and then like half of his IMDb credits for directing are like music videos. Like obviously
he did Michael Jackson.
Obviously the most famous one was Thriller, which he brought back Baker to the practical effects for, because that's why the zombies and shit in Thriller look so much like American Werewolf in London, because it was his buddy. But yeah, John Landis is like a weird one, because he had a few like iconic movies in the 80s. It did 1,000 music videos, and then just like stuff here and there. But yeah, just a very interesting career. And then eventually kind of circled back around to directing a lot of TV shows.
Apparently, he did the first segment of the Twilight Zone movie. He wrote and directed the Timeout, the first segment of Twilight Zone movie. I'm trying to. I know I saw that movie, but I don't know that I remember the time travel one. That's the one he did.
This is another weird one. He directed the TV special of Disneyland's 35th anniversary. It's like he just like
did.
Anyone that would call him up, he'd be like, "Yeah, I got nothing going on Saturday. I can show up and direct that for you, whatever."
I love this in his acting career, because he's in American Werewolf in London. He is credited as man being smashed into window. Fucking love it. He's the guy with I think it was a blue bandana that the car hits, smashes it through a window.
Yeah. I'm probably the next like most important person to mention with the crew, I would say, is like it's Rick Baker, right? That's the guy who did the practical effects.
Yeah. And
then he would go on to have a pretty storied career. I think he's gotten like 7 or 8 Oscars for practical effects of stuff, just because he's done stuff like Men in Black that I think he won an Oscar for, like a lot of pretty cool practical effects stuff over the years. This was kind of.
I'm trying to find.
This was like his first kind of breakout.
I hate the way IMDb breaks this shit down.
Yeah.
Visual effects and special effects and stuff.
There's like 20 different things that could all mean the exact same thing. It's really obnoxious.
But we'll get into that part, because that part was pretty funny in that interview that I told you about. David Naughton and Griffin Dunne, I'm gonna assume is how Dunne.
Yeah, I would say so.
Dude, the performances from the two of them in this movie.
I like how believable they are as bros.
Yes.
Like they feel very lived in as buddies, and I will just say my favorite part of the entire movie is the sequences with Jack when he's dead. Those are my. I think the just real quickly the concept of the curse and how it affects the victims and him constantly running into these victims, especially Jack over and over again, are to me like my favorite parts of the movie. Him progressively decomposing is such a brilliant touch. Like the first time you see him and he's just got like all that like fresh fucking werewolf wound on his neck. And it just looks real gross. And the next time you see him, he's like half. Yeah, it's so
like
good.
The fucking swamp thing.
I love it.
I just love that. Can I have a piece of toast? That's so good. Yeah, they're really believable as bros. My favorite parts of the movie and everything is later, but my favorite like character interactions is the two of them at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah,
they're just so believable as, like you said, just two bros backpacking through Europe, right? Backpacking through the UK.
They're kind of assholes too. He writes them to be pretty believable too, because they're not just like, you know, they have redeemable aspects of themselves. But they are real people in the fact that like they are a bit shitty, you know. They're not. Yeah. They're not so kind of goody two shoes to the point of being not believable. So I appreciate that about them.
Yeah. One of my favorite appearances that I forget about every time is David Schofield. Just
as the dark guy.
Yeah, amazing character actor that is in just about everything you've ever seen, pretty much. The top 4 credits on his IMDb are Gladiator, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, Valkyrie, and American Werewolf in London. He's in just a ton of stuff, sometimes memorable, sometimes walk-on, walk-off performance.
One of the ultimate that guys.
Yeah.
Because he just has such a distinguishable face and like kind of mannerism about him.
No shit. He is the narrator for the Doctor Who podcast series.
That's cool.
I didn't know that. He's got a good voice for that. Yeah, he's in that kind of sucks. He's in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I believe Aberforth Dumbledore is the one in the mirror that you only see part of his eye or part of his face.
I have no memory of that shit. I saw the later ones like once 10 years ago, and I don't remember jack shit about what happened in Harry Potter at the end.
Well, that sticks out of my mind because I've only seen the movies, and the movies are not written for people who have not seen the books. There's no through line through the movies. So I usually, after every movie, end up asking my wife like 20 questions.
Give me the cliff notes of what the fuck I just watched.
I was like, what the fuck just happened? Like, why did they do this or that? So out of nowhere in the movie, Harry Potter just pulls out this mirror, and it's not his reflection. It just keeps saying, help me into it. And I'm just like, the fuck is happening? What is this mirror? Who's he talking to?
Yeah,
like, where did this come from? This was not in any of the previous movies.
Well, it's what happens when you have to adapt 9,000 pages of bullshit into a 3-hour movie.
Right.
Not possible sometimes.
It turns out Schofield is also in the Wolfman remake, by the way, in 2010.
Nice. I have not seen that.
Really? Well, there's a lot there for us to talk about. Not just because the movie's like 3 hours long, but because
have the guys who play David and Jack been in other stuff? Because like they both look familiar to me, but I can't place like other stuff I've seen them in. Just wasn't sure if they were in stuff you kind of knew.
And Done. Let's see. Come on, internet. Let's see. I haven't really seen them in much myself. Not as apparently in Sharknado 5.
There you go.
American Horror Story. The Mentalist.
That's pretty cool. The guy who played David is Mr. Fantastic in Marvel Ultimate Alliance. That's pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah. Is that Griffin Dunn? That's Griffin Dunn, right?
No, that's David Naughton.
Oh, David Naughton.
Yeah.
Griffith Dunn is the one I feel like I've seen more. Let's see. He's in The Simpsons, of course. Everybody is. He's in Only Murders in the Building.
It's in After Hours.
So he's still working then.
I saw him in Dallas Buyers Club. I've seen that movie, but I don't remember him specifically in it.
He was in Ocean's 8. I don't remember him in Ocean's 8. Yeah. Interesting.
Oceans. I don't think I ever saw Ocean's 8.
Oh boy.
Was it bad?
Yep.
Yeah, it looked bad. That's why I never watched it.
Frasier. Yeah, he's in quite a bit of stuff, but I don't think ever the main guy like he was. Because my God, like you said, his performance is fucking Jack. So good, especially when he's just a skeleton later. He's like the goddamn crypt keeper.
Yeah.
The one that I always feel like I've seen is Brian Glover, the chess player.
Yeah. They
He's
got
Alien
every
3.
What was that, sorry?
He's in Alien 3, and I feel like that's probably what I'm picking up on because I'm probably the only person that has seen that movie multiple times.
You probably are.
Because that movie's not as bad as people think it is. I'm sorry.
I still hate that fucking movie.
And I understand why you hate it, but
yeah.
There's still a good movie after that part.
It's not the worst thing ever made, but on the heels of
people act like it is.
It's because it's like what it's dicking with that happened before is something that's like they should have known better than to start off on that foot.
The one that surprised me, and it took me entirely too long to figure out. I don't know how you say this. Jenny Agutter. Did you recognize Nurse Price at all?
I know I've seen her in something else. So what is the thing that you're referring to? Because it's been driving me crazy.
So I looked her up, and she's in a shit ton of stuff, and most of it I have not seen. Some of it I should have seen. Like I've never seen Logan's Run, but the thing that got me, she is one of the council members for the World Security Council in the Avengers.
That's right. Yeah.
I was listening to her voice, and it was her eyes. There's something about her eyes. I was like, I know you.
It's one of the people that are like being dicks to Fury the whole movie, right?
Yes, and that movie ends with him telling them off. Yeah, and
I would have watched the Avengers again in 20 years, and I'd have been like, "Fuck, that's her. That's the thing."
It's especially her voice because they're kind of silhouetted a little bit, but you can still kind of see their face. But she's one of them that gets killed, I think, in Winter Soldier when they had the name tags or whatever that electrocute them.
Oh yeah. Or was she the one that Black Widow was like impersonating? Or
I think so. Maybe.
Or is that
I don't know.
I can't fucking remember, man.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I think it's been a while. I think that might have been the one that Black Widow was impersonating, but I'll have to go back and check it out. But yeah, they had every single one of the supporting actors is that guy or that lady that you know.
Right? Yeah. Now she's in a shit ton of stuff. Not all of it came over here. But that is the one. The moment I read that, when I was scrolling through her IMDb, all of a sudden her face and her voice landed for me. And I was like, that's it. That's who you fucking are. Absolutely.
Does Landis have a tie-in with the Muppets specifically? Because he has Frank Oz in this movie as Mr. Collins.
Dude.
And they have a specific scene where they show a pretty extended scene from the Muppets on a TV.
Yeah.
So I'm curious.
I have no idea, but I have to tell you, the other night when I watched this movie for the podcast was the first time I realized that was Frank Oz.
Young Frank Oz
is so weird.
It does not compute in my brain at all.
Does not
even a little
compute. Yeah, I never realized that was Frank Oz, and when I read that in the opening credits, when I saw his name listed, I was like, I fucking beg your pardon? And I don't know how I've never noticed that before.
And then your brain's like, oh, he got credited because they have the Muppets and they have like Miss Piggy's voice, which he is partially credited for. He's credited as Mr. Collins and Miss Piggy, which is a pretty awesome combo to get. with your
When
IMDb
I
page.
think of Frank Oz, I think of Knives Out Frank Oz, right?
Yeah.
When I see him and not hearing his voice.
Yeah. Because he's one of those people where your brain associates him with, oh, he's been 70 forever.
He's looked like that my whole life.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
my God.
I'm assuming he has to have some type of background with the Muppets for him to take that much of a scene to show the Muppets and then to have Frank Oz. So yeah, there's not a coincidence. Got to be buddies with him to some extent.
So the other person I want to shout out, I don't know her, but the barmaid, Lila K. I love her. You can't just let them go. You can't let them go. Like, she just keeps going on, and they're shaming them all for what they've just done to these two poor American boys.
Yep, it's pretty fucked up.
It's pretty fucked up. But like, she doesn't want them there. She doesn't want to serve them. But when they force them out, she's like, you just can't let them go. Like, she's the only one with a shred of decency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rest of them are just.
But that performance that she just keeps saying that again and again is so good.
Especially the chess player guy is such a piece of shit.
He's such a piece of shit.
He's such a selfish bastard. Like, is he part of the group that goes to shoot the first werewolf, or is he not there? He is there. Okay.
I believe he's the one in front.
I can't remember, but yeah, I know they have a few of them from the bar.
There's like 1 million pictures on IMDb. I'll just start clicking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that scene. It's such a, so this movie took a while. I think I read that he had the like initial script of this like 12 years before it actually got greenlit. And the main problem point with it was everyone was looking at it, rightfully so, I think, and saying this is too funny to be a horror movie and it's too scary to be a comedy.
That's exactly what he says in that interview, word for word.
And like you get this like weird middle ground, which is a common thing now. Like we get horror comedies, fairly often. It's like an established thing within horror is horror comedies,
right?
Like your Dale and Tuckers and stuff like that, and Cabin in the Woods, like that's an established genre now. But this is like kind of one of the first ones that started that as a thing, because this does have elements of a comedy and it does have elements of a horror movie. Even the ending, like we'll get to it, is like it's tragic, but the way that it's edited is edited almost into being like a dark joke. The way that it hard cuts to the music and everything. So,
but the transformation scene.
Yeah,
even the transformation scene with the music choice there. Yeah,
I didn't mean to call you a meatloaf. That's my favorite line from the movie, probably. But like some great horror writing is you being in a foreign country and you go into a place and everyone knows something that you don't. That is like that trope will always work because there's nothing scarier than being like that much of a fish out of water.
Than being the odd man out, right?
Yeah. And when people are acting that jovial, and then when you walk in the room and it goes dead silent and everyone is just staring at you and you're just like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Like you feel that in your bones, that level of like being seen, dude. Like, oh man.
Hey, can I call this movie out for something that it does that I specifically wrote in my notes, because this is not something you run into in horror movies?
Sure.
The people in this movie have fucking heard of a werewolf before.
Yeah.
Lon Chaney Jr. exists in this world.
Yeah, they even have the stuff talking about you'll need do I need like a silver bullet for the gun to work? And he's like,
don't be ridiculous.
Don't be ridiculous.
Yeah. These people have heard of a werewolf. Like everyone on the planet has heard of a fucking zombie, but no one in any zombie movie knows what a zombie is or how it spreads or how it works.
That part
and
has always driven me insane, specifically about the zombie movies. Like that aspect of like it's such a universal trope for zombie movies for them not to know that it drives me crazy.
And then we have now reached the saturation point with that. They can't use the word zombie anymore. They all have new words to describe a zombie and everything. It's a fucking zombie, man.
Isn't the term for like zombies also like tied up in like weird legal shit, and that's also another reason why a lot of things don't like to use the word zombie?
I don't know.
I feel like it might be, but I can't remember the specifics of it. But yeah, it's obnoxious, dude.
It's so annoying. But Lon Chaney Jr. exists in this movie. They talk about the Wolfman.
Yeah,
it's insane.
It's pretty cool because it also it saves us from being subjected to the like 10 minutes of exposition where it's like spoon fed, because like all the exposition happens at the beginning of the movie with like pretty quickly Jack referencing like what the pentagram means and how like this is, so with it being like a pentagram and they specifically call it like witchcraft, is it kind of like believe that this werewolf's curse is like the curse from like a witch?
It could be.
I like that they don't go into detail like on the like nobody really knows what the origin of it is. And is that something that's touched on in the sequel? Like do they ever actually talk more about like the origins of it?
I don't remember. It's been a while.
I hope they don't, but I'm just curious if they did kind of like what the origins of it are.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. It's been a long time. I probably haven't seen that movie since it was on like HBO after it came out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have a feeling based on some things he says in that interview, which I recommend everyone look up. John Landis talking about this movie. It's an 18-minute interview. It's on YouTube. It's in the special features on the Blu-ray. We might link it, actually. But he talks a lot about a little bit about the Romani people, which are involved in the Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr. For the people who don't know, that is now the politically correct term for gypsies. That is a slur. That is why in my Subnautica videos, when I color my mech blue, I always name it Romani Peril, because I don't want to type Gypsy Danger onto the side of my mic. Mech, not Mike. Dude, my next mech, I'm naming it Mike. So yeah, it might be like a Romani or Gypsy curse. I don't know, because they talk about it. That's in the original Wolfman, I believe. At least they're involved, because in most old werewolf stories, like the Romani people were the ones that know about the werewolf, right? And no one else does, but they know the ins and outs of the werewolf and how to protect yourself and everything. But the reason I say that is in that interview, he talks about witnessing in real life a Romani funeral. And the way that they bury the person vertically so they can't crawl out of their grave to come back and cause trouble and stuff. I don't know. I feel like that would have a big influence on this.
I thought it was interesting how he wrote a lot of callbacks to the original people that work, because like the dream sequences where there are Nazi werewolves are actually a callback I read to the original guide, to where the original kind of like symbolism for the Wolfman stuff was being looked at as a monster for being Jewish.
Yep.
And what's cool is like it's cool like homages to that original stuff and the original people involved in it, but it also just works as like a crazy dream sequence, because that's the type of shit that you see in your dreams, is something like that, you know, random and out of left field.
Well, not only that, he talks about how he wants the thing he doesn't like about horror movies is he doesn't feel like the characters are real. He wanted these two chuckle fucks to be as real as possible. And being young men in like the 70s, early 80s, they would have been hearing a lot about the Nazis and the Nazi occupation of Germany and all that, because he said that's what he was hearing about in school and hearing about in the news and stuff at that time in the 60s and 70s. And they would have been hearing about it. So if you're going to have a nightmare, what's more horrible than werewolf Nazis bringing down your door and just murdering your family? So, but by the way, the werewolf Nazis, come on, Call of Duty, the next zombies mode. I want fucking werewolf zombies, man.
Yeah,
the werewolf Nazis. I mean, man, That I was just like, come on! I always forget that scene exists.
It's also I like the way that the dream sequences are edited in, because they're just non sequiturs at first and they're not talked about for a while. Like there's like 3 or 4 dream sequences before David talks about the fact that he's, having these weird dreams. And the way that they kind of like non sequitur, like hard cut to them, makes them feel like more dreamlike too, because they come out of nowhere, and like that's kind of like how it feels like to have dreams, because like you're going to bed and then all of a sudden you're having this nightmare, and it's like you don't remember.
All of a sudden you wake up.
Yeah, it's like a non sequitur out of nowhere, and you don't remember how you got there or how it started. You're just in it. So it's like really well written, I think.
I like that. There's a movie that was like, I forget what it was. He says what it was. It was the first one to link 2 dreams. It actually does it with more than that, and by the end of the movie, you're not entirely sure whose dream you're in from which character and what's been happening with what character. And he said that double one where he wakes up and then she goes to get him medicine or whatever, then the fucking werewolf Nazi comes out and starts stabbing her, and then he wakes up again. He said he directly ripped that off from that movie because he wanted to homage that movie.
Nice.
He said he always liked the way the dream sequences are done. What I like about the dream sequences in this movie, the way they come out of nowhere like that, is the way Jack comes out of nowhere every time. Mm-hmm. And the first couple of times it happens, you're just like, is he dreaming? Or is he actually talking to Jack? And it turns out he is. But the first 1 or 2 times Jack shows up, it's right after the dreams start. And you just don't know if he's going to wake up or not. Yeah. It's really good. It's really well done.
I love the last scene with Jack too, where he's just standing outside of the porno theater and just waves him down, and he's just so casual about he's a fucking walking corpse. He looks like the he's like the crypt. He's like proto crypt keeper.
Yeah, I fucking love it.
And he's just casually just standing there.
That makeup effect where it looks like you're looking down into his chest cavity and into his neck is so good.
I fucking love that effect so much.
The way that Dunn plays it off as Jack, like it's not even there. Like this is just his new normal.
He's not
in pain. He's not using a raspy voice. Yeah. And it's so much scarier and freakier than if he were talking with a raspy voice or something,
Well, even when he's in his last stage of being a zombie,
he's just himself.
He's just acting like himself, and he's still talking normally. And they superimpose his voice over the effects because he's it's pretty much like a full puppet at that point almost at the very end. But man, I like too how he's in all of these fucked up stages of death and everything, from his wounds from the werewolf, but also David doesn't freak out when he sees him. He's almost more like why are you here, instead of being afraid, which is pretty cool because he's just talking to his friend most of the time.
Well, you gotta think he's been having these dreams. The first time he sees Jack, the dreams have started, and then he does freak out and he's crying and he's calling for the nurse as he's losing his mind. And then the second time he just lets out that scream. There's so much comedy in this movie. It's hard to know if that's played for comedy or not, but it makes me laugh every time when he closes the mirror and then just screams. And then Jack's like, "Oh, calm down, dude."
Also, I was just scrolling back to the photos, and the whole introduction is as far as doing the wolf in sheep's clothing. It's so on the nose, but it's so perfect. And that's one of the things I actually like about this movie a lot too. Is I think
thanks
this
for
movie,
the ride, sir. You have lovely sheep.
I think this movie kind of walks the tightrope of its tone really well, because this movie at any point could kind of go over the edge and just be kind of fucking ridiculous, but they keep it in check, and it's legit.
He wanted the characters to be believable. He wanted them to be real people. So they react to things the way real people would react, which, according to John Landis, was basically new at the time, which was part of the reason he had a hard time selling the script. Then the other thing that I think kind of helps it is his focus for the movie. He talks about how the first metaphor actually, this is the second metaphor I think he says in the interview. But the thing that I really like is, in his mind, a werewolf is a tragic character, right? And he describes a werewolf as almost being a cancer patient, except instead of the cancer killing him, the cancer kills everyone around him.
Yeah.
And he's just this really tragic figure suffering from this thing from which he can't really cure. And no matter what he does, he keeps doing like more harm. And he's waking up in weird places. He's doing things he doesn't remember. And he doesn't remember what he did. So even when he finds out, it's not as bad as like, what else did I do that we don't know about yet, right? So there's that aspect. The other thing, and we're going to talk about the transformation sequence here pretty quick. The idea of the werewolf transformation, he sees as a metaphor for puberty, actually. The way your body changes, the way it's scary and uncontrollable.
You're becoming a new person.
You're becoming a totally new person, but still kind of the same person.
Yeah.
And he talks about how, like, you've got hair growing out of places where you didn't have hair. All of a sudden, your dick is hard and it's scary. Like, that's what he says in that interview. Like,
yeah.
He's just going on, and the dick getting hard is the hand stretching out and becoming the paw in the transformation sequence. That is what that is a stand-in for. So you're going to see this movie totally different by the time we're done. But yeah, I think focusing on those two aspects, right? Because if you think about the way the movie is put together, it's kind of genius. And it kind of, with those two ideas in focus, I don't want to say it writes itself, because that is really dismissing what he wrote and what he did in this script. But it definitely provided an outline, I think, because if you think about the way he's acting before the transformation, it's kind of like the hormones raging, right? He's being kind of weird. He's having weird dreams. Weird things are happening to him. And then when he transforms the first time, he goes out and does werewolf things. But when he comes back, like, he acts very different. He talks about how he feels like a fucking athlete at this point. That's almost like the testosterone raging. She's trying to talk to her boss on the phone, and he's like all over her, and she says that she would say he's enthusiastic, right?
Yeah.
The way he's acting, that's after the transformation, would be after puberty, right? Just things like that fall in line with that metaphor, and he never loses that through the whole movie. Everything you can point at in the movie falls in line with those two metaphors, with how he's hurting people around him. He's a tragic figure, he's hurting people around him, and with everything being a metaphor for puberty, everything just kind of falls in line.
I actually, I like personally the metaphor of the survivor's guilt from the attack a lot better than the puberty angle personally, because I think it's a lot more like nuanced, as far as I think it's incredibly tragic exactly how Jack's death goes down, because they get attacked, right? And naturally he runs because his fight or flight has kicked in. His buddy got mangled and he's running for his life, but he goes back.
Yeah.
He goes back to help his friend, his best friend, even though he knows it's pretty much like hopeless, but he goes back. So it's like he has survivors.
His best friend never once brings it up when he talks to him after his death.
Yeah, he
never blames him, anything.
His survivor's guilt that he clearly has and is dealing with for like the entire movie pretty much, until like his testosterone kicks in too much to where he's feeling so confident he can't really have that kind of like guilt anymore. But like he has survivor's guilt for something like he didn't really, and that's the thing with like survivor's guilt, is most of the time it's not your fault and it was totally out of your control. But he ends up, his best friend dies and he ends up dying, and he had all the survivor's guilt, but it's like he went back. Like he could have just kept on going, but he went back. He
would have died too had he not ran.
Yeah,
there was nothing he could have done.
Yeah, it was totally out of his control. So like the whole thing with like there's a lot of like it's a very silly movie at times, but it has a lot of like deep meaning to its metaphors. So
Now, how would you compare
cool
its pathos to Infested?
Man.
Let's compare and contrast.
Yeah, well, you see the metaphor of being one day away from retirement. But man, it's just like, I like movies like this to where you can take all of it at face value and just enjoy it, or you can like, there is stuff there to dive into if you want to. And right. I like movies that give you the option, because most time it's not like that. Most time the director will like shove the shit so far down your throat that like, you're gonna like my metaphor. I don't care if you don't want it. It's there. Like, I'm so smart. And this movie just kind of like lets it exist. It lets it breathe. And you can figure out these like the symbolism of how there's more depth to the fact that they're Nazi werewolves. You know,
right.
Like this, the puberty angles.
Dog
of it,
soldiers, if you will.
The survivor's guilt. There's like, it's it is a horror comedy that has like a lot of depth to it that is not super common, and I really appreciate the way that it's presented.
Apparently he's not a fan of it being called a comedy. That's one of the first things he says in the interview. He says it's not a comedy. He said he was just trying to make a contemporary version of an old movie, referring to the Wolfman, and that he just wanted his characters to be real. But I mean,
there's slapstick in it. Like,
there is slapstick in it.
The fucking the one scene I don't think deserves to be in the movie is, why are we like taking the time to have slapstick with the shitty detective who is actually like the smart detective?
Inspector Clouseau.
Why are we like you're saying you don't want your movie to be called a comedy, but he's fucking organizing the fucking bedpans after he knocks them down, and it's just like, what?
So I guess if we're gonna do a deep dive, what do you think John Landis is saying about his feelings on the police and on Scotland Yard?
I love how much he fucking hates authority in every sense of the word, because every authority figure in the movie pretty much is the biggest asshole in the universe. Dude,
except the doctor ends up being a good guy though.
Kinda, but he's also a giant asshole a lot of the time. But
he's also very sexist.
Yeah. But again, that is actually, I think, kind of like deft writing, because he's a sexist piece of shit who has some redeemable qualities, and that is a lot of people you meet in real life, where like most people in real life aren't, you know, on one end of the spectrum or the other. You know, they're kind of in between, where they have good qualities and bad. So it's like, I like how the doctor dude does have some redeemable qualities, but he's also just a piece of shit at other times. But like the one who's the most obnoxious, and you can tell the extent to which Landis fucking hates authority figures, is the last line that Frank Oz has.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the one where he's just like, yeah, what is the exact quote?
I don't remember. Something like, "Damn kids, I never appreciate anything you do for them."
Yeah.
Dude just found out he survived an attack and his buddy didn't.
And he's so he has zero patience for the dude who almost got killed and witnessed his best friend get killed.
Yeah.
And he has no sympathy, and he gets irritated at him for having an emotional reaction to almost fucking dying. It's like, fuck you, dude.
Yeah, there's no need to be hysterical. Yeah.
Yeah.
Frank Oz is the biggest piece of shit.
The fucking worst. Oh my goodness.
One of like the greatest guys ever too. Is right? One of the biggest
his real life friend that he's turning into the biggest dick in the universe. Man.
Oh man. Yeah. Okay, before we go into the transformation sequence, I want to ask you this too. What do you think of the ways and how often they show the wolf in the movie?
I think some of the cinematography of the wolf is super cool. My favorite shot of the entire movie is the shot down the escalator.
Okay, that's good. We're coming up. I'm going to talk about that in a minute.
The escalator shot, you see the guy who is being chased by the werewolf. Most of the time he's being chased, it's from his perspective, and you don't actually see the monster. And the first time you see it, they let the score go like totally dead silent, and he's in this like subway, which is randomly totally like cleared out of people, and it's such a cool setting because it's like a silent subway, and you see from the very top of the escalator as he's fallen and and hurt himself, and he's just kind of like going up the escalator slowly as the werewolf enters the frame, and it's so good. And he's only on frame for like a second or two, and then it cuts away without showing it. And I love that scene. It's so good.
So the note that I had is that instead of using the musical score as the wolf, they use the camera as the wolf, much like Jaws did the score.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times the camera is down low to the ground and it's moving. It's not just gliding across like in a lot of movies. It's kind of got a bounce to it, like it's walking because you are the wolf.
It's a bit like the Evil Dead camera, just like super slowed down, like the.
Don't remember. I've seen the movie once.
The Entity.
But John Landis says in that interview that he believes he showed the wolf too much. He was just too excited because he really liked the wolf design and what they made for him. But he thinks he should have showed it less. But he said that in his opinion, the absolute best shot in the entire movie that his cinematographer had set up was the escalator shot.
It's so fucking good.
Looking down, you described it in such good detail, and I was about to talk about it.
So good.
John Landis said that is the first time in the movie you get a sense for the size of the thing.
Dude, okay, let's talk about too. Most werewolves are like fairly lanky.
Yeah.
This one is he's been
chonky.
hitting the fucking gym, dude. He doesn't skip fucking bench press day. Like he's a chonky dude.
So the goal, because he's supposed to be a wolf man, not just a werewolf, he still has a lot of human. If you look at still images of him, he still has a lot of humanoid features, and he's not completely hairy. The hair, just like Lon Chaney, is like the shoulders, chest, and back, and then like the abdomen and lower back is very little hair. And he still has like a lot of human-like qualities to him. It's really, really well designed.
I like the werewolf design a lot. It's unique. Like that's something that's pretty rare because when you think of like a werewolf in your brain, you have like a pretty kind of like the mean version, like the kind of average between all of the werewolves, and you have like this kind of like baseline in your brain. And this is very different, which I appreciate. It's not kind of like taking the kind of cookie cutter
It
style.
actually holds closer to like a lot more of the werewolf stories in France and stuff, where like the werewolf stories originated. It holds a lot more true to that.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty good. He thinks he should have showed it less. I kind of agree a little bit. I think a little bit less or more close-ups maybe than some of the shots we get. But
what do you think of the close-up shots? I think they do the close-up shot of his face a little bit too much.
That's because it's a hand puppet.
I think they should have had the
just off camera. The special effects guy is wearing it like a glove.
I think they go back to that kind of like signature shot like a little bit too much. That's really my only critique with how much they show him.
But yeah, it's the that first time that you see it full body and the size of it on the escalator. It's so good.
It's cool too because it's kind of like it is like center frame, but it's
at a distance.
It's at like the perfect distance where it's like it's very detached. It's not. It's hard to explain.
Very ominously is approaching the guy like a predator does prey that it knows it's caught already, even if it doesn't have it yet. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't need to run or pounce. It knows this guy's done.
Yeah, man, it's so good.
Oh man, that scene is so good. And then I love that guy later because that guy shows up in the porn theater and it's so good.
I fucking love how I love how nonchalant some of the victims act. It's like they all kind of act the way that Jack does, where it's like a lot of them are horribly disfigured, but they act more annoyed than like terrified or mad. They're just very irritated.
Yeah. And I just love Jack's been telling him to kill himself, and they're still talking about how he needs to kill himself. And then I forget what one of the guys says, but Jack's response is, "Hey, come on, this is my friend." It's so good.
Man, the scene when he like is it his like little sister that he calls and says goodbye to?
Yeah.
That seems like really heartbreaking because I like
He's
how
the little girl in the dream. It's the same. The girl is credited.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool. I didn't realize that. But
Yeah,
like
that was his family. Yeah.
I like how like real it is. Like he's calling to say goodbye to his whole family, and of course, but like the timing of it, like his parents are gone.
Right.
It's just like his sister.
It's so tragic. Everything just keeps getting more and more tragic for him.
Yeah, and it's like of course, like you're not gonna have the like picture perfect ending because that's not how life works. He's gonna call, and he just happens to call the exact like 30-minute window where his parents are gone. I like how it kind of ventures into the conversation of like they never would have fucking let me be alone when I was 10, like.
And that's what he said. That's what he said when he was talking to her.
Yeah. He has that like I love all those little like ways that like your picture perfect idea for what this story would end like would be like in a lesser movie would be him calling and having the conversation with his parents, and but that's not how it would happen. It happens just like it would in real life, like.
Yeah, I feel like in most movies it's mom that answers. Yeah,
it's not gonna have a picture perfect thing, and like he reiterates to his little sister like 3 times, like, you got to tell mom and dad that I love them.
Yeah,
but she's 10. She has no she doesn't even know any better to like be concerned, because like if he called and said all of those things to his parents would naturally know something is wrong.
They'd be on the first flight out.
Exactly, but because his sister probably didn't even tell him.
Probably not.
By the time they got home,
am I right?
By the time they get home, she probably already forgot that she was supposed to do something.
Oh yeah, she's busy watching the Muppet Show.
Yeah, she was watching Frank Oz be a colossal piece of shit.
Oh man!
But yeah,
two minor nitpicks, and then I want to start talking about the transformation scene.
Okay.
Because I wanted to go on the transformation scene because it is what this movie is most famous for.
Of course.
So 2 minor nitpicks with the movie I have, and the showing the wolf too much. The most minor of all the nitpicks, by the way. Jeff, if you wanted to get yourself arrested by a police officer, what's the first thing you would do?
Reach for their gun.
Reach for the gun or punch them?
Yeah.
Right?
I thought he was going to punch them.
I kept waiting for him to punch him because I couldn't remember how that scene ended. And it ends with everyone just casually walking away.
Like, fucking Americans.
If you really want to get arrested, just punch the guy or go for the gun, right?
Yeah.
The other thing, because like, come on. He even comments about how he couldn't get. I mean, I guess that kind of highlights how like he's not the guy that would be like going around doing serial killings, but
I actually remind me to circle back around to that, because I actually found a very interesting like thread on Reddit about that I wanted to run by you because I was
intrigued.
I was curious if you have ever picked up on this kind of like concept for the movie based on that and a scene later. But yeah, what I'm curious if your second nitpick is my major nitpick of the movie, which is not, it doesn't ruin the movie for me, but it's a nitpick for sure.
I highly doubt it is, but maybe.
Okay.
You have to applaud a porno theater that will not stop the movie or raise the lights while people are being murdered by an animal. They just keep the movie going. The cops are going in with their flashlights. They don't even turn on the light.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
John Landis says in the interview that he thinks the scariest scene of the movie, the scariest moment for him, is when that cop walks in and stumbles upon the creature and you just see it only illuminated by the flashlight. And it like rears up and roars at him to get back from his prey.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting there like, but sir, Mr. John Landis, sir, they would turn on the lights. Like that wouldn't have happened.
What's funny is that didn't even cross my mind as I was watching it. It's just like,
the movie's just playing. And if one of his themes is puberty and all that. I had written this note before I watched the interview. Sure, that's probably still going on in the background. You could write some metaphor about that going on in all 13-year-old boys' minds in the back of their mind at all times. Whatever. The point is, we, for any reason, at the movie theater I worked at, stopped movies and brought lights up all the fucking time.
Right.
There's people being slaughtered by a wild animal inside this porno theater. And no one is stopping the movie. They're still just banging away in the background.
It's really funny.
I was laughing really hard.
Yeah, it's so absurd though that it fits in with some of like the absurdity of the movie overall.
I mean, we're talking about a guy turning into a wolf and eating people, so
yeah.
you know. Yeah.
But my major nitpick is like, I like it as the song choice during the transformation scene, but did we really have to have every fucking song be about something related to the moon? There's like 8 different fucking moon songs in this. I'm just like, come on, man. I love you, Landis, and this movie's awesome. But like, really, do we have to? Did you have to use every single song that is related to the moon? Could we have just had like a couple of them?
I want to say he said, I didn't write this down, and I should have. I want to say he said that song during the transformation sequence was the first music choice that he made, and he made that choice when he wrote the script, like 12 years before it was made.
It's perfect during the transformation scene. I didn't need all 20 other songs in existence that are about the moon. But like, it was so like, I was watching this on Amazon Prime Video, and you know, like if you scroll up, you can see the exact song choice. Even the ones that aren't specifically saying the word moon have the word moon in the title. And I'm just like, fucking Christ, dude. Like, we don't need this on every song choice, please.
James Gunn before there was a James Gunn.
Fuck, dude.
Oh, man. Also, I just want to say that poor schmuck that gets run over, his head gets run over by one of the cars during all the chaos. The note I wrote is just my luck, run over by a car during a werewolf attack.
Well, yeah, let's talk real quick about the point I wanted to before we get to the transformation scene.
Sure.
Since you mentioned it. So one of the Reddit threads that I found most interesting as I was like briefly researching this movie. So earlier you mentioned about how this curse with the werewolf is almost looked at as like a cancer, how it's like spreading to everything around it,
right?
And how it's like, it's just like,
and how it's affecting everything around it.
How it's affecting everything around it. Is the Piccadilly Circus scene the chaos of the curse, or is it just people freaking out? Because it turns into like a fucking Benny Hill scene, and it turns into such a Benny Hill scene that, to me, the way I watched it after I read that conversation on Reddit was, I think they're onto something. I think it is specifically like the chaos theory of this curse, because like it dude. Like I said, it's fucking absurd. Like, some of the shit that happens in the Piccadilly Circus scene is crazy. So like, do you kind of like place any stock in that theory about how like this curse can, when it wants to, create like complete chaos? And that actually ties into as well with the cop, about how like he kind of wants to get himself arrested, but he's not willing to punch him.
That's why it's not working out.
He wants to get himself arrested, but he can't do the thing that he knows obviously will get him arrested because of the curse. Because the curse knows that if he gets arrested, he can't do as much damage and can't create the chaos that the curse wants. So like, are a lot of these things that are like conveniently absurd, like the stuff that happens with all the people getting run over by cars, and there's like a 17 dude, there's a bigger fucking car pile up in this scene than in the beginning of Final Destination 2. Like, it's crazy.
That's what you were about to say.
it is crazy.
But there was no timber going through people's windshields, though. I was very disappointed.
So I was curious, like, what your thoughts are on that concept as like the curse as like a driving force, like literally in the movie with this shit.
I mean, it could be. I think realistically, it was just in the script. But I think since we don't know the nature of the curse or where it originated or why this curse was started, that you could easily, I mean, there's a lot of supernatural shit going on, right? I mean, that's why he can see his victims. They died an unnatural death, Jack says. So
Yeah,
they can't rest.
I think another thing that kind of like leads to this like way of thinking is the way that David is acting with how nonchalant he is after his first night of killing. He eventually starts to freak out and realizes like what he's done, but he's not very disturbed by the fact that he woke up without clothes on. I mean, it leads to like great comedy. Like I love that scene where the little kid is like, a naked American man stole my balloon. Like, what?
My favorite comedy bit in this whole thing, and I told you John Landis talks about how he doesn't really see it necessarily as a comedy, but he talks about how there are funny bits in it because he thinks that going through puberty and stuff, as scary as it is also got funny stuff to it, right? Like the way your voice changes, things like that. The embarrassing moments that it leads to in your life, things like that. And he talks about his favorite comedy beat, which was my favorite comedy beat, the two old people on the bench, and he just runs by naked in the background and snatches the jacket, and the scene never stops and the camera never moves.
It's great.
It just sits there at that wide angle, and he just runs by silently, and nobody really reacts.
I like too when it cuts to him just wearing that coat in line. Yeah, he's just so nonchalant about it.
Yeah, and that's the kind of like embarrassing things like he's talking about happening to the character, playing in the metaphor of puberty and all that. But yeah, I mean, we don't know anything about the curse, so I mean, I could see it. It would make sense.
My main reasoning for it was just how fucking batshit that Piccadilly Circus scene gets, because it's fucking nuts, dude.
My only thing about that is just like there's nothing like in the movie that kind of supports that. You know what I mean? There's nothing that like explicitly.
Yeah, you have to read between the lines a lot, but also like think back to that scene and how slow the traffic is until the shit hits the fan, and it's like they're on the Autobahn, like they're going fucking berserk, dude. Like that to me, that is this part where it's like I get the theory.
It's the highway chase from the island.
Yeah, like I said, like I'm not kidding when it turns into fucking Final Destination 2, because it goes fucking nuts. Like how many people get killed in the surrounding areas? Like that one dude gets like thrown through the like the sheet of glass. The one I think it's like a cop that gets squished by a car. There's like so much vehicular manslaughter at work, dude. Like it's crazy. More people get killed in the fucking car crashes than by the werewolf itself.
Yeah, and those are all natural deaths, so they won't haunt him.
Yeah. Let's get to the transformation scene. I know you've been wanting to get to it. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh man, that transformation scene. First off, I laugh hardest at him running by in the background naked, grabbing the coat. But one of the things that I don't think is played for comedy at all that I always laugh at is just the sudden outburst of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's like it's a moment of exquisite acting, to put it in Hollywood Babylon terms.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, because of the nature of this movie, it just kind of works also.
Yeah, it does.
When the first thing you see is his hand elongating. Jesus Christ.
The sound effects as everything is happening.
Yes. John Landis said
the crunching of the bones is...
That was the exact words he used. He said he wanted it... He said it should be... Your body is reconfiguring into a shape it should not be. He wanted to see the musculature. He wanted to hear the cracking of the bones. He wanted this to be like one of the most painful things, which in a lot of more current werewolf type stuff, it is a desirable thing to transform. There is nothing desirable about what is happening to David.
Dude, the most haunting one for me is when his face elongates.
Oh,
and the effect on it is so fucking good, and the timing of their sound effects to all of the like manipulation of the bones is so good.
So this is gonna make some people roll their eyes. In the first season of Inuyasha, there's a character. It's actually Inuyasha's brother. He transforms into a giant dog, and they don't show the transformation. The only thing they show change first is his face, and it does that exact same elongation, and it does it almost from the same angle. And I think of this movie every time I have seen that scene in Inuyasha.
Yeah.
Because it's so haunting. I'm trying to sit there and watching your hand elongate into a paw like that, and him screaming "Help me" as like his shoulder blades are rearranging in the rib cage, and then you see the spine popping up. And
I like the scene too, like, where he's like about halfway through, and they just show him laying on his back on the ground, and his physiology is like in between a dog and a human, and it's so unnatural, like where it's like almost more disturbing than the very early moments of him transitioning, just because like he's in such a state of unnatural like physique that it's just so disturbing. But like the music choice to go along with the whole thing is like so perfect too, because it's like
so soothing and just like bopping along, and he's just sitting there screaming, "Help me!
Yeah,
Jesus Christ, I'm burning up,
man!" They like eventually like show him too, where he's just like fucking drenched in sweat because of it too.
Yeah,
it sucks.
Like a fever, right? Like a virus, like a fever,
right?
That transformation sequence, John Landis standing there talking to the special effects guy that makes it happen, right? And he's like, "This is what I want to happen. It has to be actually happening. It has to be. It can't be put in post. It needs to be happening for the camera, and we're not going to cut away." And he said all of those sentences are things that piss off a special effects director.
Oh, yeah.
Because they want to cut away, and they want to have a chance to work on it and switch to the next thing. And these things all had to happen at once for the camera in one take, in one shot.
It is incredible that they were able to make all this shit happen. Like
it's
fucking
amazing.
Nuts. I can't. So it's mind blowing now. This movie came out like 43 years ago. I can't fucking imagine being in a theater in 1981 or whenever
and
this came out.
Seeing this.
If you saw this without knowing what you were in for, your brain would fucking explode.
1981. What are we talking about? 1981. Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, I think it was 81.
Or is it Jedi?
I might have been. Oh, I think it was 80 where Empire came out. So I think this was the year after.
Okay, so this
Empire.
is the year after Empire. What else is in 81? What else is around 1980? Which Indiana Jones are we on?
It's probably.
Have we had Indiana Jones yet? We've had Indiana Jones, right? Is that Raiders?
Raiders came out in 81. So this was the same year as Raiders.
This is the same year as Raiders.
Yeah.
Man, what a fucking year.
Man, could you imagine going to a double feature of like this and Raiders? It'd be awesome.
Yeah, this transformation sequence, man, was the first time I ever saw it was haunting. And it is haunting in the best way, because it's like watching a train wreck, right? You
can't turn away.
You can't turn away, but you want to.
You are mesmerized by how awful it is. It is so fucking next level that it still blows my mind today watching it. It's like you understand how 90 seconds of this movie made it a cult classic for eternity because of how incredible this effect is.
Okay, here's the top 10 films. God, all of a sudden I'm David Letterman. Here's the top 10 films that released in 1981. The highest grossing films in 1981. Starting from 10 going to 1. Time Bandits, The Four Seasons, For Your Eyes Only, Chariots of Fire, Cannonball Run, Stripes, Arthur, Superman 2. Think Cellophane S, right? Isn't that one?
Yeah.
And we have this werewolf scene. And then, I don't know what On Golden Pond is. That's number 2 highest grossing. Number 1 is Raiders of the Lost Ark.
crazy.
So that's what came out the same year as this movie. The only one was special effects that may be on the level as this movie is Raiders.
Yeah.
And they are post-production special effects.
Yeah, they're standard. Like this was this like created an entire industry of these types of like this and and I think John Carpenter's The Thing was 1982, and it's like between those two with their practical effects created like a whole fucking cottage industry of movies like this that were like it's why it's so special to me. It's like I equate the practical effects in The Thing just like I do the practical effects in American Werewolf in London. It's like it's part of the fucking DNA of the movie. Like it is like a fucking like a beast in its own right. Just how talented these fucking effects people were, dude. Like it's crazy.
It's interesting how much this movie, as a watching experience, as an audience member, has in common with The Thing. I've been thinking about it this whole podcast because you've brought up The Thing a couple times, and it's interesting because the main difference is you know who the person is, right? You know it's David. But there's also just this weird, first off, the practical effects obviously are the main through line there, but also the thriller aspect of it. Whereas in The Thing, you knew there was a hideous monster lurking somewhere, you just didn't know who it was or what they were gonna do or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really know what to expect next in this movie, despite knowing what is happening and who's doing it. You have this similar feeling to The Thing because it's David, but it's not David. But it is David at the end of the movie, kind of, because he recognizes Madam Councilwoman, right? Nurse Price.
Yeah.
He reacts to her. And my feeling has always been that he intentionally lunged at her so they would shoot him.
I agree too. Yeah, I think he is trying to because like of how much like that we haven't talked about it. I actually really like the dynamic between him and the nurse too. Like I think they actually have some like legitimate chemistry with each other, and that's usually not a very common thing for horror movies.
I think a lot of that is from the actors themselves, because while the romance is good, I don't think it's necessarily believable. I think it happens really fast.
It does, but because of how much chemistry the two actors have, I think they sell it pretty well.
I was gonna say,
especially like in the context of a horror movie.
They make it believable, yeah.
In what other context in a horror movie can you even think of like a romantic thing working at all?
Yeah.
Usually they just happen to be dating because those two people are going to get
because
killed.
The script said to.
Because the script said so, and because those two people are going to be killed in in proximity to each other in like nearby scenes, you know, like that's purely the context of it. So I think I actually it is incredibly fast, but I actually think that the actors do a good job.
Well, like at the same time, like that, I'm saying that for the sake of conversation, because this movie flies by like it's 10 minutes long. It does not waste any of the audience's time. It totally respects your time, and it uses, I would say, pretty much every minute that it's on screen effectively. You know,
Agreed,
It even when nothing is happening on screen, the performances are so good in this movie. You just kind of like watching the people work. And usually when nothing's happening on screen, that is you sitting there like, okay, is Jack coming back? Is something going to happen with the doctor? The police could show up. We end up going back to the village. We didn't even talk about the doctor going and talking to the people.
Yeah, the doctor ends up kind of becoming like a Sherlock Holmes figure almost, like trying to figure out what the fuck's going on.
Real quick, what was? Oh God, I closed it. Hang on. Go back. No, I'm live on mic. The fucking doctor's name, Hirsch. So we didn't even talk about John. I didn't even mention John Woodvine as Dr. J.S. Hirsch. I meant to look this up. What is what is his name a reference to anybody or anything?
there's so many homages in this movie. I'm sure it's a reference to something, but I can't say for sure.
Because it's not as straightforward as like Arthur Conan Doyle or something, right? Like we talked about in Crimson Peak. But I feel like JS. I'm just gonna type JS Hirsch into Google. Oh, thank God Google AI is here to save the day. It seems you might be referring to Jennifer S. Hirsch, a prominent figure in the field of public health and sociology. Oops, something went wrong. It literally says at the bottom. So I'm getting a lot of Jennifer Hirsch and American Werewolf in London. And
Nice.
That's basically it. I really feel like that almost has to be, maybe it's the actor. I don't know. What else is John
I'm honestly
Woodbine
not sure,
done?
but I would almost be willing to bet that it has to be an homage to something because there's a lot of like deep cuts in this shit.
Yeah. Yeah, John Landis likes his references, it turns out. He talks about it in that interview.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, that's basically all the notes that I have. If you didn't watch this movie before listening to us talk about it, and you don't plan to watch this movie, you have to go watch that transformation sequence.
Yeah, for sure.
My God. If you appreciate special effects in film at all, it's a masterclass.
It's like you could watch it 20 different times.
I don't want to.
and still just like be like your fucking jaw will drop because of how effective it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite scenes still though are just him casually talking to his corpse of a buddy. It's just I like the stages you see him go through where he's decomposing is such a good touch. And it's also just like it's fucked up to think about too. It's like that he's already at that state. What would happen if like what would he look like if things had gone differently and David lives like a year? Like
right.
if you think about like what fucking poor Jack would look like
at some
that point,
he's just a skeleton, right?
He's just a skeleton, but is he then talking like a fucking Evil Dead skeleton? Like is he just still talking like he can? Like even though he's like fully decomposed and shit? Like I don't know.
Have you ever talked to a corpse? It's so boring. I'm dying here. Yeah, it's that aspect always kind of made it unique to me, and it makes it very unique in werewolf movies.
Yeah, that's never like it adds a whole other layer to it that makes it more interesting because it's not. I like werewolf stuff, but adding that whole thing where this is a curse to all of the victims as well, and the state of like purgatory they're in is just fucking awful, and the fact that they continue through it with their wounds.
Yeah. That's always
really
been a trope that always freaks me out because it's just like if I die a grisly death, I hope to God that is not what I end up looking like in the next life, you know?
A movie that does that really well is have you heard of the movie Talk to Me?
I have heard of it.
So the movie Talk to Me is about you basically touch this like possessed item.
I'm into touching.
And you are possessed by a nearby spirit.
Yeah.
And in the movie, when the person is basically getting possessed, you take on the physical features of like their death. It's really cool. Some of the stuff they do with it, but it's kind of playing with that trope of.
See, yours is better than what I was gonna say.
Like the state of what caused the person to die is now afflicting the person being possessed. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, in the manga for Bleach, the ghosts that he can see and he talks to, and mostly in season 1, they all look like that. Like the famous one is the little girl from the first episode that died in the street or whatever. She's like part of her head's missing and like she's just got blood streaked down her face.
Oh
and
God! Sorry, go ahead.
And in the anime, they clean all of that up. They just look like see-through people. In the manga, they all look grisly.
Another one that does that excellently is The Sixth Sense. A lot of the ghosts continuing on basically like in their exact same state. Like the little girl who was poisoned constantly puking.
Yeah.
And looking like she had just been poisoned is so fucking haunting. Like, just looking back on that, that's one of those things where it's like, it's such a layup of a trope, but it will always work if the idea behind it is
because think about
good.
the implications. Because if it's the nice one, it doesn't seem so bad. But if you're stuck in this limbo purgatory state, like this in between being, like, they specifically call themselves undead because they're not alive and they're not dead. They're not at peace and resting. So they're the undead. So they look like this. They specifically say that in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's hell, man.
You're constantly encountering the worst moment of your life.
Yeah.
It sucks. And they're so numb to it, they act casually because, like, what the fuck else are they gonna do? They're just stuck. It sucks.
What was the line that one of the homeless guys says? That's not Winston. When you hear when they're like looking off camera, then you hear the wolf bang. And I didn't know this. I Googled what a baying dog, what that means, because I've always heard that term, but I didn't realize that when a bloodhound gets the scent that it's looking for, it makes that sound. It's baying.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that either.
So every time you hear the werewolf baying in this, the first time you hear it is David and Jack walking across the moors.
Yeah.
That is it on their scent.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
And when you hear it in front of all of his victims, he has their scent and he's on them.
That's pretty cool. I didn't realize that.
It would be interesting, going back to the theory on Reddit, looking back to, like, if there's any through line between the characters that were killed, between the victims, if, like, the curse is targeting certain people. Yeah. With the baying before the attack and stuff. I wonder how far you could carry that.
It's interesting. Theory. It adds, like, a lot of, like, cool dynamics with it to think about. Like, how calculated it is versus how random it is interesting to think about.
Yeah. But my favorite too is that the tube, the subway tunnel going to the escalator, because if you want to talk about metaphors in a movie, that guy is literally walking through a lit tunnel and then riding an escalator up at the end. Like, that guy gets it bad. And, you know, I don't know. There's just something about the idea of dying all alone, whether it's grisly or not, that us humans don't like. And there is not a soul around to even know he died. Like, someone found him later.
One thing too that I think is, like, an interesting, like, kind of hint towards the idea of the, like, active chaos. Where is it where the main climax of the movie happens at is the chaos happens at Piccadilly Circus. It's like, it's very specific. Yeah. It's like this curse.
The circus of what's happening is happening at Piccadilly Circus.
It's like the curse loves this just, like, rampant death where it's just like a fucking carnival to it. You know, it's like it can't get enough of just, like, the crazy just random like bloodshed of it. It's like the curse is, like, fucking loves it. So
what's your favorite werewolf movie, Jeff?
Probably this one. I would say. I'm also very partial to Dog Soldiers.
Dog Soldiers is good.
Which we need to have on the show.
That's another one that I think we watched together for the first time.
Yeah.
When you came over to hang out and do a double feature, I think.
Yeah, because it was a really beloved werewolf movie that Ron and I hadn't seen, so it was one of, like, our first ones we picked. Was like, we gotta watch it ASAP. And it's also, I think, the director of The Descent. I think it's Neil Marshall that directed it too, so we were kind of drawn to that. Yeah, we gotta have that in the show too. It's a good movie.
Yeah, it's on my list. This movie, I think, is 4 years too late. I think we should have covered this in year one at some point.
Yeah, I'd say so too. But hell, a lot of shit to cover. There's still a lot of, like, obvious, why the fuck haven't we had that on the show yet things, you know?
Yeah, well, for a little while I was still sticking to the premise, you know, where I already showed you this movie. We already covered it together, even if it wasn't on the podcast. So I was still sticking to the premise of showing you things I think you either need to revisit or things you would like.
Which
And
I still
then-
dig, by the way. If you find other shit that you want to introduce to me or introduce to both of us, like I'm totally down. I like having. I have pivoted to picking a lot of shit we haven't watched.
Yeah, I've kind of started pivoting to things that like it's a crime we haven't covered yet.
Yeah, which eventually it'll go in waves. Like eventually I will kind of circle back to obvious shit we need to cover, and then you'll have more fresh stuff. So it'll happen naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any other? I've kind of talked about all my notes that I had. Did you have anything else before we sign off?
No, I think I've covered everything.
Good werewolf movie. Good. Go watch.
Good werewolf movie. Good. Go watch.
If you would like to follow the show more, we are on Twitter at SPR Filmcast, where we can be followed for show updates and quote tweets of making fun of people in the YouTube comments. Of course, my favorite thing to do. Any ratings or reviews on whichever platform you caught us on always helps us out. If you have any friends you might think enjoy the podcast, go ahead and share it out to them. And Ron, where can people find you when you're not talking about werewolf movies?
I am Ronsense TV on Twitter, Blue Sky, Twitch, and YouTube.
Let's see. I'm thinking about any other plugs I didn't mention. If you found us on YouTube, obviously liking the videos and subscribing helps the channel grow.
Smash that bell.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And if you are kind of like seeking out any horror stuff, I don't often like plug my own stuff because of imposter syndrome, but if you Google the No Sleep Podcast Wall of Smiles, you can actually, I think it's like $5 to sign up for their like a premium thing, but you can actually get access to a horror novella of mine that was adapted to their podcast. It's pretty cool.
Which makes you technically a published writer.
It's kind of crazy. Yeah, it's the Wall of Smiles.
You're no longer an aspiring writer. You did it. You got published somewhere.
I did it. I gotta do it some more, but I do really appreciate
it. Got adapted. Come on, man.
It did.
You're practically John Landis.
Practically. I don't know. I'd like some of those royalty checks to come through. That'd be pretty nice.
Every full moon, you transform to John Landis.
Yeah, but
a Landis Thrope.
Landis Thrope. I like that.
A Landis Thrope.
What? Just real quickly, what's your second favorite werewolf movie after this?
Ooh, boy. American Werewolf in Paris? No. Second favorite, I don't know. Dog Soldiers is really good.
Dog Soldiers is good.
Yeah, I don't know. I might have to pause there.
I think you introduced. Was it Silver Bullet? Was that the werewolf movie that you also showed to me?
That was the one that I think made me fall in love with werewolves. Yes, I did show you that. I bought it on DVD, I think, to show you. I either own it on iTunes or I own it on DVD. That is a Stephen King adaptation, if I recall.
I think you are correct.
Yeah. That movie scared the ever-living piss out of me when I was a kid. I actually forgot about it for a while till my dad brought it up one day. That's how I ended up bringing it up to you, is I'd forgotten all about it. Gary Busey, I want to say, is in that movie.
I think that's correct. Have you ever watched The Howling? That's one that has a lot of buzz around it as far as werewolf movies.
I have not.
We might have to pick that one for the show at some point, just to check out another kind of cult classic werewolf movie, because why the fuck not?
There's also a Christina Ricci one, I think, called Cursed. It did not do well at box office. I remember it being pretty okay. It falls more in line with the original Werewolf Curse, where like they are literally marked with like the pentagram shape, like was on the wall of the pub. Things like that. They can only be cured if the bloodline is severed by killing the werewolf that created them or whatever. Yeah, I remember it being pretty okay, but I don't know. Dog Soldiers is pretty good. I really like Dog Soldiers.
Yeah, I think that's my second favorite one.
The problem is we don't get enough werewolf movies, so I'm thinking of things and being like, nope, that's a book. Nope, that's another thing. Because like Black Goat Motorcycle Club would make a fucking awesome movie.
Yeah, I need to read that again.
I do too. It was really good.
We just need more werewolf shit. It's sad that you don't really have, like, if you think of like vampire things, you can think of like 20 different movies, but with werewolves it's pretty limited. There's just not been very much.
If you're listening to this and you have a werewolf movie suggestion, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
They mentioned in this movie specifically the Baskerville Hounds.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen that movie. I kind of want to go check it out. My dad saw that when he was a kid at the only movie theater in town where he lived. And he said him and his cousin literally ran all the way fucking home from the theater. It scared the ever-loving piss out of them. And I highly doubt it'll be scary by today's standards.
Oh, not at all, but it'll probably be charming because of the way that it's presented.
But he said that they were not a fan of dogs for a few days after. Like, it just scared the ever-loving fuck out of them.
Side-eyeing them.
Yeah.
It's a Bad Moon Rising, dude. Gotta watch out for the fucking dogs.
Blue moon.
God damn the fucking soundtrack.
Bomb, dang, dang, dang.
Yeah, I find it interesting that the ending of this movie actually is a bit controversial because a lot of people fucking hate how abrupt the ending is, because it's a tragic ending that then hard cuts into a joke pretty much. But I think that also falls into like the tone of the movie and the juxtaposition of the comedy versus the horror, because
also
it's based around, just real quickly, it's based around David's story, and the way the ending is so abrupt and how it kind of like feeds into the concept of like the survivor's guilt, and how like when the person dies, all of that trauma is spread to everyone else.
Right.
So that there's meaning behind how abrupt and almost silly the ending is. It's not just a joke. There's like symbolism behind that too, which falls in line with what we were talking about earlier about how like on the surface it doesn't really look like there's a lot of depth to it, but there is if you really think about it.
If you really think about it. And there's always in everything a case of sometimes the door is just red, but yeah. I believe this is one of those movies that you can literally sit there and talk about all day.
For sure.
One of the reasons I think that he is also somewhat himself in that next transformation is, if I recall correctly, he does not lunge or anything to get shot until after she says "I love you" back to him, right?
Yeah, because he says I love you" at the scene when he doesn't punch the cop. And then doesn't reach for the gun.
Doesn't reach for the gun.
The one opportunity, man, you got to take it to reach for the fuck. Everyone wants to reach for the gun. Come on, you got it. Take your shot, dude. Come on. But yeah,
see what you did.
She doesn't say it back until at the very end. Yeah.
And then when she says it, the monster reacts to that, and then immediately lunges and gets gunned down. And I really feel like that is like just him. Like that's a good. Like picking his death, choosing his death. It was death. It was suicide by cop. And
to save her and to save the people who were afflicted by the curse. Finally,
yeah. And he chose his moment. So
he also, I think, kind of chose to get cornered because he was. I think subconsciously he was like, as much as he could while being in that form, like he was subconsciously trying to get himself killed to save everyone around him and his friend.
Yeah, I didn't get the feeling that he was in the driver's seat. I feel like he was at odds with the beast, right?
Exactly. I totally agree.
The beast mind and the human mind were just at odds with each other.
Yeah.
And he was, he was probably going to slip at some point and kill her because that's what you do, right? It's interesting, his metaphor of the cancer that hurts everyone else, because like people equate vampirism, the vampirism curse and being a vampire with rape. Like it's supposed to be like a metaphor for rape. I have always associated werewolf curse with like alcoholism, drug addiction, things like that, because you ruin your life, but you also destroy a lot of the people around you. And that's kind of how I've always thought about it.
And you're like literally turning into a different person because you're losing your inhibitions and everything.
You're doing things that you don't want to do but can't help doing.
Yeah.
So I've always seen it more as a metaphor for addiction. This was the first time I've ever heard of they're a tragic figure. What I just described is very tragic, but describing them as like a cancer victim, but the cancer is eating away at everyone around them instead, I thought was an interesting way to think about it.
And my final thought is just the amount of topics we've had today where we've discussed stuff that is up to interpretation in a 90-minute horror comedy about a werewolf like shows the level of like detail in the script.
That is good beginning to end.
Yeah, that is it's paced beautifully. You're never bored. The moments that aren't actively about werewolf stuff are progressing like the character depth, like making certain characters like more likable, showing which characters are pieces of shit, like like Frankos. And yeah,
I really feel like I don't know how you're gonna feel about this, but I'm gonna say, in my opinion, even the things that it doesn't just fucking nail, it does with such charm that I think this is basically a perfect movie.
Yeah, the stuff we have to complain are nitpicks. There's nothing at its core I would change.
Yeah, up there with like Alien and The Thing, so that other things that we have called basically a perfect movie.
It achieves everything it sets out to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's enjoyable beginning to end. And like I said, even when it doesn't nail something, it makes up for it with the charm with which it does whatever it does. So.
Yeah. And the depth is there if you want, and you can just enjoy it at face value if you want, which is always a kind of like delineation I love with movies.
Yes.
Is don't beat me over the fucking head, Christopher Nolan, with how fucking smart you are, you son of a bitch. You and your fucking protagonists. Get the fuck out of here, man.
But it's the same name forwards and backwards. It's like race car.
Fucking kill me, dude.
I want to make a spoof movie called Race Car.
Dude,
it just does everything Tenet does, but dumber.
Being eternally undead is just watching Tenet on a fucking loop.
Oh,
Jesus
no.
Christ.
I can't. It's too scary. We have to go.
Thanks for listening, everybody. And then if you want to follow along with what our next movie is going to be, we are entering year 5, right?
Yep.
Of the podcast.
Sure
you know what
are.
we're going to start off year 5 with?
What? What are we doing?
Another fucking Nicolas Cage movie.
That's you ready? The only thing we can do.
Are you ready for what the next Nicolas Cage movie is going to be? Because it's circling back to another thing that has been a common trope with our podcasts.
There's so many. There's so many things.
What do you get when you mix your Nicolas Cage with Lovecraft?
Oh,
you get The Color Out of Space.
The Color Out of Space.
We're going to cover The Color Out of Space, which I don't think you watched yet, did you?
I have not watched yet, no.
All right. A side thing is I wanted to ask you real quickly.
Ooh, this is a good reason to go back and reread Color Out of Space
I was going to ask you, I'm assuming they did, but did the Lovecraft adaptation podcast thing that you like, did they do a Color Out of Space episode?
Reason that they changed their name and pivoted is they ran out of Lovecraft stuff to cover.
Because
they did his entire body of work.
Cool. I figured they did. I wanted to listen to their version of it, and then watch that movie and just kind of like, or vice versa.
.com.
Yeah, I wanted to go back and check that out. Because while I don't actively read a lot of Lovecraft stuff, I'm interested in listening to their adaptation of it. And I actually really liked the Nicolas Cage movie adaptation of it. So
yeah, I've heard good things.
I like it a lot. I think it's really good. I think it actually follows in line with a lot of the concepts of Lovecraft that you and I appreciate. And it's got Nicolas Cage in it, man. It's Lovecraft and Nick Cage. We got to cover it.
The H.P. Lovecraft Literary Podcast. It was episode number 59, The Color Out of Space, Part 1.
Nice. And just real quickly, The Color Out of Space, you can rent it on Amazon and Apple for a few bucks, but it is also available for subscription on Shudder and AMC Plus.
Also, you're in for a treat if you listen to that episode also, because Andrew Lehman did the reading for that podcast, and there's no one better at reading anything than Andrew Lehman.
Yeah.
He is the main guy behind the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society, and he's the guy that wrote and directed that Call of Cthulhu movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm excited to go back and because I've actually never read The Color Out of Space. That's one I haven't read. I read like Shadow over Innsmouth and like what's the oh god, is it The Mountains of Madness?
Yes.
I've read that one. I've read a few of the major ones. I just haven't read Color Out of Space, so I'll go back and listen to that through them, and then watch the movie, and then we'll do like a little kind of almost like what we did with the 13th Warrior, kind of like juxtaposing what we think works and what is like a kind of like cool callback versus the original, and what's new, and kind of like take it from there. It'd be fun.
Yeah, the I want to say it's still free on Audible is the complete H.P. Lovecraft collection. And that is Andrew Lehman and the other guy. It's put out by the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society. It is a recording of all of Lovecraft stories. I am trying so hard to kill time until I can read deep enough in. It is Andrew Lehman and Sean Branney reading the texts of Lovecraft that were edited by S.T. Joshi, which is kind of seen as like the number one. If you're going to read Lovecraft, you want the S.T. Joshi.
That's
stuff.
the way to do it.
Yeah. They, the two of them are the two guys behind the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society. And I think Lehman reads The Color Out of Space, if I recall.
Nice.
And so, yeah, you can listen to it that way. And Lovecraft is public domain, so you can also just look it up and read it if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And then...
But the other version though, that was like didn't they do like almost like audio dramas of some of them? I remember you saying, or was it just them kind of reading it as like an audiobook? I forget.
They were just reading them as an audiobook.
Just as an audiobook. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, you could make that an audio drama for sure.
Yeah,
but yeah, you have several ways to listen to all the shit we are going to talk about in the next episode. I am so excited. That is such a good story.
I think you will dig the movie because that
is a hard movie to make too. It involves a color no one has seen before.
Yeah, I think they do about as well like with adapting it as you can, because I watched it a few years ago when it came out and really liked it, and it's been on the short list for the podcast for a while, and thought it was a good time to circle back around to it. Hey, it's continuing Halloween-ish shit for a little bit, so always down to extend Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this has been our episode for the week. And thanks everyone for listening. I hope you have a safe and awesome Halloween. It is the best time of the year, bar none, to me. And I can't wait over the next few days before October runs out. I'm going to be watching a shit ton of horror movies. So can't wait.
Fuck yeah.
Thanks again for listening, everybody. Have a awesome holiday. And we will catch you next time with Color Out of Space. Have a good night.
Start this, then I'm ready to start a new recording. You do.
Okay. I will start one after I finish yawning.
Glad I recorded that.
Or will I?